How can you find the distance between 2 points on a coordinate plane? Think about this question during the lesson. Tammy drew a map of her neighborhood. How far is it from Lee's house to the school? Are Lee's house and the school on the same horizontal or vertical grid line? Lee's house and the school are on the same vertical grid line. Find the coordinates of Lee's house and the school. How do you find the ordered pairs for Lee's house and the school? For each location, start at the origin and move along the x-axis and then along the y-axis. Then record the coordinates as an ordered pair. What are the coordinates for Lee's house?
Select your answer.
The coordinates for Lee's house are -4, -3. The coordinates for the school are -4, 2. What do you notice about the x-coordinates of Lee's house and the school? The x-coordinates are the same. Because the x-coordinates are the same, you can use the y-coordinates to find the distance between Lee's house and the school.
You can use what you know about absolute value to find distances.
The absolute values of the y-coordinates tell you the distance between each point and the x-axis. This distance is the absolute value of 2, or 2. This distance is the absolute value of -3, or 3. The distance from Lee's house to school is the absolute value of 2 plus the absolute value of -3 equals 2 plus 3 equals 5 miles. Why do you add the distances between each point and the x-axis to find the total distance from Lee's house to the school? You add the distances between each point and the x-axis because the two distances combined result in the total distance between Lee's house and the school.
Drag point B to see how to find the distance between point A and point B.
These two coordinates A and B, this time instead of having the same x-coordinate, they have the same y-coordinate. So since they have the same y-coordinate, we will use the absolute values of their x-coordinate to find their distance. So A is at -5, B is at 4 on the x-axis. So we can add their absolute values to find their distance is 9. The easier way to do this is to count the units between them. So counting the line segments from here to here, starting at A, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units here, and then another 6, 7, 8, 9. So altogether that's 9 units between A and B. So you could use the absolute values or you can just count. Now notice if I bring B on the same side of the y-axis as the A, they still have the same y-coordinate, but now you need to subtract their absolute values of the x-coordinates to find the distance. Or again, you can simply count from A to B, starting at A, this is 1 unit, 2, 3 units between them. Okay, so you can either subtract their absolute values when they're on the same side of the axis, if they're in the same quadrant, or you can add their absolute values if they're on opposite sides of the axis. Or you can just simply count the units.
You should always use the absolute values of coordinates when calculating distances. The distance from one point to another point is always positive. Now you know how to find the distance between 2 points on a coordinate plane.
What is the distance from the school to the playground? Explain how you used absolute values to find the distance.
All right, so we're going from the school to the playground. Notice again how they are on this same grid line here. They're on the same grid line, and this grid line points right to the x-axis, so they have the same x-coordinate, which means you will use the absolute values of the y-coordinate to find their distance, or you can just count the units between them. Okay, so pause the video, find the distance between the playground and the school, and then unpause to check your answer. Okay, if you were to count the units from the school to the playground, this is 1 unit, 2, 3 units between them. So the distance is 3. You could have also used this y-coordinate of 5. This one here would be, that's 2 here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you take the 5 and the 2, and you would subtract their absolute values because they are on the same side of the x-axis. So it's the absolute value of 5 minus the absolute value of 2, which is the same as 5 minus 2, which also gives you 3.
The Coulter family starts at their home and stops at a rest stop to eat lunch. How much farther do they need to drive to get to the water park? Use coordinates to find the distance.
So starting at the house, and then they stop at the rest stop, but they're just asking how much further do they need to drive to get to the water park. So they're just asking you to look at the rest stop to the water park. So the y-coordinates of these two places on this coordinate plane are the same. So we use the absolute values of the x-coordinates. And since they're in the same quadrant, they're on the same side of the y-axis, you will subtract their absolute values. So the absolute value of negative 85 and 5/10, the absolute value of negative 25 and 75 hundredths. You subtract those answers and you get 59 and 75 hundredths miles. But to try it, please do this in your workbook.
What is the total distance of the Coulters' return trip after their day at the water park?
So now we're going from the water park all the way home. So we need that total distance. And that's how they're setting you up here, giving you the 85 and 5/10 from the water park, the 65 and 5/10 from the house. Again, the y-coordinates are the same, so you need to do something to their absolute value. So you have to decide, am I adding these two? They're on opposite sides of the axis. Or do I subtract these two? And then put those answers here, and then find the final answer here. So take a minute to do that. Pause the video, please. All right, since they are on opposite sides of the y-axis, you will add their absolute values. And the absolute value of negative 85 and 5/10 is 85 and 5/10. And we are putting a plus sign in the middle here. And the absolute value of 65 and 5/10 is 65 and 5/10. Oop, that's supposed to be a decimal point. That doesn't look like a decimal point at all. All right, and when you add those two numbers together, you get 151 miles. Did you get it right? If you did, celebrate!